Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the watch list. Another live, real quick. You guys know what's going on. The usual. It's a big week here in American politics, as if it wasn't enough that everything is going on this week at the Republican National Convention up in Milwaukee. We also had, of course, the shooting over the weekend at former President Donald Trump's his rally up there, and I don't even know where the hell he was, but he got shot at over the weekend, and then they go straight into the RNC. Speculation is flying, conspiracy theories are flying, political games are being played, as you can imagine. I did a video just a minute ago, on that, all of the fallout through it. But now we have even bigger news. The dominoes keep falling. It's news break after news break after news break. Oh, I forgot about the news break of the fact that Judge Eileen Cannon also dropped and dismissed that classified documents case, one of the criminal cases that Donald Trump was facing. He got an assist from one of his favorite appointed judges there as well. We're seeing that potentially going up to the Supreme Court at some point. But of course, as was seen before, it wasn't even going to be something that was going to play out before we got to the election anyway, partially because of Judge Eileen Cannon. So she just finished the process again today by saying, you know what, we're going to throw it out and send it back up to the Supreme Court, where one justice, Clarence Thomas, made a similar argument that she did for the reasoning behind it, saying it was just illegal for them to even prosecute in the first place. There's more details behind that. The news now is JD Vance. JD Vance has been chosen as Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate as he goes into this cycle. They had narrowed it down earlier. They'd narrowed it down, I think, as of even today or yesterday. They were looking at Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, JD Vance, and I guess Tim Scott. Tim Scott, it was kind of being floated before. He wasn't completely eliminated the way that, say, Vivek had been eliminated, or I guess Byron Donalds, because there wasn't much direct, at least that I read, direct information about Byron Donalds and why his ass was no longer mentioned either. There's many thoughts that I have about those two, but Tim Scott is one of the ones that hasn't really much of a list, but it doesn't matter because now we know who it is. JD Vance, he is Senator JD Vance from Ohio. Before this, he was not much of a Trump fan. I think that's beginning to be something everyone kind of knows that aren't already political wonks. But JD Vance is coming on board, and the question then becomes, why? What is it about JD Vance that I guess piques Trump's interest, or really anyone else around Donald Trump who probably told him the best route you can take here is for these specific reasons? I had eliminated Marco Rubio as of last week, mostly because of the issues that they had. I think Donald Trump was asked about it by Brian Kilmeade from Fox News, and you know how much of a nice guy JD Vance is and all that stuff. And Marco Rubio did come up, and he said one issue being that they're both considered from Florida. We know Donald Trump is actually from New York, but as far as politics goes, he's from Florida. And to have him and then also Marco Rubio, both from Florida, that kind of is a problem. I thought it was always just a problem based off of electability, in thinking that, yo, I'm from Florida, you're from Florida, we have to send someone from another state who maybe can bring in some voters that's from that state, that may be a battleground state. It happens from either any political party that may go that route, because they just want to spread out their chances more. So obviously Ohio is one of those states. Florida is usually used to be kind of one of those states, but we already got Donald Trump from there. So that's one check mark that JD Vance at least grabs, is Ohio. I'm trying to think of the others. I wonder what you guys think of what he should have chosen, maybe the way that he did this. Of course, this is day one of the RNC. It wasn't done from the stage. It wasn't done with much fanfare. It was a note, or at least not an extended note, but this is what Donald Trump then said about why he's choosing JD Vance. After lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I've decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator JD Vance, of course. He put this on Truth Social, you guys, by the way. He continues and he says, JD honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from the Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate. I just want to pause for a second and point out the amount of times that Republicans like to brag about the schools, the Ivy League schools that many of these politicians went to, or folks that they support went to, and how smart that makes them. That is until those private institutions or higher institutions of higher learning, until they have students that speak out, say, against genocide, against Palestinians. Then it's a bunch of ragtag. I can't believe that the liberals and Democrats are brainwashing our children. Don't send them to universities. But when they go to universities, they're smart and they're more qualified because of it. Anyway, it's a side note that have always bugged me. Continuing on, he pointed out that he went to Yale Law School, where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal. Man, even more. And president of Yale Law Veterans Association. JD's book, Hillbilly Elegy, which everyone has heard of as well, became a major bestseller and movie as it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. Pause again, this isn't over yet. Think about the states that he mentioned there and the reasons why they brought it. See, they can't say it, well, not that they can't. They want to do it a little bit more artistically, I suppose, to say the reasons why they chose JD Vance, which was the first question that I asked. And he pointed out that he's fighting so brilliantly for American workers and farmers. This is probably a group that I assume MAGA and Donald Trump's orbit feel that he's not connecting to as well as they need him to for purposes of getting elected. So he wants to make sure they convince American workers and farmers in these states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota. Those are some serious battleground states where many of these workers, maybe unionized workers, who don't really have a good track record as far as unions with the Republican Party lately, the way that they've been literally calling them garbage and fighting against them. And whenever unions rise up to try and fight for more rights for their members, they get told that they're un-American, that they're trying to gouge these companies. These companies they can't survive off of several $1 trillion. They have to do more. So there's been this big wall between Republicans lately and unions. So they figure they can bring in someone from Ohio, claim that he fights for unions. Claims that he fights for American workers and farmers. And hopefully that'll get enough people on board. That's outside of the fascism part. We'll talk about that later. Last part about his memo here. He says, as vice president, JD will continue to fight for our Constitution, stand with our troops, and will do everything he can to help me make America great again. Congratulations to JD Vance and his wife, Ursha, who also graduated from Yale Law School, and their 3 beautiful children. And he ends with MAGA 2024. So a bunch of Yale Law School folks are on board with Donald Trump here as his vice president running mate, and his wife apparently all in the same. We'll see if it works, because this is the other part about JD Vance. He hated Donald Trump. In fact, who knows if he still does. This is one of those guys that I assumed many Trump folks, MAGA folks, would be the ones saying things like, you can't trust him. He's a never Trumper. He came up from the very beginning and said, F Donald Trump. In fact, he said a lot more other things about Donald Trump. I'm going to show you guys some of this. I might not been on this the whole time. Oh, there I am. I want to show you guys some of the things that JD Vance has said about Donald Trump that was voiced, that was asked of him about this. This particular clip doesn't get his answer, but I was, just in case you guys hadn't seen, let's show you this really quick. Let's go.
And I know you've been asked about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things that the left is going to come after you, and they're probably going to be put in ads to be chosen as the VP pick. I know you've been asked about this before.
Stop this guy from talking. So obviously that was before he was chosen. Brett Baer was asking him, but those kinds of questions are always couched in, now, Democrats are going to ask you about this, maybe even put it in a couple of ads. Why does it be Democrats that are asking you about this? I would assume anyone that sees reality and watches politics and follows how these things work would ask that same question. Has to be couched in, well, no one with any kind of conservative mindset would actually wonder why you selected someone who literally called you all these names, said you're a damn near Hitler, but then he picks you to run with him. I'm not sure which concessions were made. I'm not sure if he was able to convince Donald Trump after begging on his knees, yo, trust me, that was all just politics, bro. I thought you were going to lose like everyone else did. Again, this was back in 2016. I thought you were going to lose like everyone else thought so. Bro, it's no hard feelings, please. I mean, I promise I'll walk in on my knees every day. No knee pads. I promise. That's the plans that JD Vance apparently, I guess I'm imagining, told Donald Trump that he's willing to go through just to get this position. It could be that, or it could be that Doug Burgum doesn't have a big enough name. He's a little boring. He tried to back up Donald Trump at the trial in New York with the rest of the red tie folks that came out hoping to get their name in the mix for vice president, with Vivek and Byron Donalds and Tim Scott. And it was the host of these guys. I can't even remember how 12, 15 of them all showed up. Mike Johnson, I'm not sure if he was vying for a VP run, but he was definitely trying to show his face. So I don't know if his choices were really all that great. I mean, he chose Mike Pence when he did win, and also when he lost. And then that's when, he encouraged his supporters when they said they wanted to hang him to be like, oh, well, I guess they needed someone else that was maybe not as boring, but only kind of boring, or maybe has that edge of once hating Donald Trump. I don't know if never Trumpers ever get over their normal hate for Donald Trump. I guess we're going to have to figure all that out. I don't think it's going to cause much division within the folks who still support MAGA because there's nothing that'll shake their support for Donald Trump. They kind of have a safe bet, no matter who they choose, that suddenly that person will be the number 2 dictator behind the number 1 dictator. That's the plan, I assume. So curiously, I really want to see what Tim Scott is thinking. He's not going to say it, of course. Byron Donalds, Marco Rubio, who again, they had a knockdown, drag-out primary back in 2015, 2016 when Donald Trump first came in. Said he's got little hands, and you know what that means. He's corrupt. He's a disgrace to the country. He's going to tear this country apart. Lindsey Graham was one of those guys too. Yet after he got shot at that rally, Lindsey Graham was damn near crying on TV about how much he loves President Trump. Oh my God, we were supposed to golf today. This is all said by Lindsey Graham. We were supposed to golf today, and I'm just worried about him. This is the flip that many of them make. Lindsey Graham said, if we vote and nominate and put Donald Trump in positions of power within the Republican Party, it'll be it, and we'll deserve it. He said those things. No one really likes to ask him about them because they'll probably just breeze by them as well. At least JD Vance is getting asked about it. And his answer in previous interviews has been things like, well, I was wrong about the guy. I was wrong. Yeah, I said all those things. He's willing to point out that he did say those things, because how do you deny it? I was wrong. I love him. We went through those 4 years. All those people dying of COVID was great. He convinced me after doing all these things specifically just to help the rich and corporations, and then doing nothing about COVID as the economy disintegrated and people died. And he started throwing out these harebrained solutions because he really didn't care about it at all. What he was concerned with was how it made him look because it was an election year. All that stuff was what convinced JD Vance to suddenly love Donald Trump. That's what he noticed about him. That's his answer. It's really the best answer he can really give. What else can you say? He loves him because he has an opportunity to be right next to him, to be his right foot man, because he will be at his feet. One other part, though, I did remember this. I've played this in some of the preset videos that we've been doing here. There was one point when he was at a rally. JD Vance was sitting off on the side at a rally. Donald Trump was there, and he's pointing out how people kiss his ass. Donald Trump. He said, JD, called him out in front of all these people. JD was he's kissing my ass right now, is what he said about JD Vance, because I'm doing so well in the polls. Like, there's the humiliation factor that has to come into some of this stuff, and JD has to sit there and laugh. That's right, I was kissing your ass. That's right, Donnie. Can I kiss it again? These are the things that maybe that's what helped him. Again, he talked trash about Marco Rubio too. Maybe this is the retribution for Rubio's previous battles with Donald Trump. Bring him up far enough, bring him to the edge, makes him think he's a finalist, and then say, Marco, get out of my face. Go home, get on the plane. That's what he said to Chris Christie as well. Everybody that at one point thought they had, I guess, the favor of Donald Trump, discovers at one point that he wants nothing to do with you unless you can do something for him. And even after you do that for him, he still wants nothing to do with you. All he needs is to use you. I'm not sure. So the question becomes, what does he need to use JD Vance for? I think it's the farmers and American workers line in those specific states that they point out in that message, because they want those folks in those states to go, maybe that's why JD Vance, love him now. We'll see to the degree that that works. It's kind of an old school political move, which I wonder in the ever changing political field, the way politics is run, the way campaigns are run, the way that we have this access to so much information and misinformation, including disinformation. I wonder to what degree people see a line like that in those states and then say, JD Vance, if they weren't already. If they already were, it's not gonna change at all. And similarly with people who are against him. I'm not sure that people who haven't decided yet back and forth between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which way they're gonna think about this. I don't see too much changing from people from where they already thought. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh my God, JD Vance is the worst. Agreed, but all of them are. Ed Vance says Jayar Vance is more mid-Ohio than soybeans. Mid-Ohio, like that's the positive. I'm not sure the reference behind that, but mid-Ohio being like he's right in the middle of it. I'm sorry, I'm not from Ohio. So clarification there for me to know exactly if that's a positive or a negative for him. Because my kid says anything that's mid isn't that good. Let's see. I guess it was a good pick. I had a feeling he would choose JD. It was pretty much clear once he sent the notes to Burgum and Marco that they're not on board. I'm not sure. I didn't get much reports about what he said to Tim Scott or Byron or Vivek or whoever else. They must have known they were out in the first place because they were like, we're here just to carry water up to a point because we know the Republican Party ain't choosing someone that's darker than the orange tint that is Donald Trump. Tyler Hackner says it's a bad pick, but he uses specific words for it that I can't say here. Crap pick, I guess, is the best way to paraphrase that. I suppose, again, I'm sure that all these picks have their issues, but what's their purpose? That's the next question. He needed a woman, is what Keith Lewin says. But who would that be? The only possibility with that would have been Nikki Haley, which I do think, now that you're saying it, this has been in the back of my head before they had their battles, before she decided to run for president and run in the primary and attempt to go after him a little bit with no debates to expose him. I think Nikki Haley was probably number one if she just stayed in line. The problem is she stepped out. She tried to forge her own path. And he mentioned it himself, Donald Trump. He said he didn't say she stabbed me in the back, but he says she told me at one point that she's never gonna run, not against you, sir. And then switches and runs. I think that bugged him because that was maybe his choice. She is from South Carolina. Not sure how much of a battleground that is, but again, a woman as a candidate and also as his ambassador. So, she's a warmonger. I don't know. I mean, it could cover so many bases, but then that's those things they picked apart about her later once she then went up against him. So that was the only woman he could come up with would have been Nikki Haley. And that went off the rails because of her decision. Let's see. Miss Bessie Jackson says, oh, well, Tim and Byron. He didn't want either of you. All that humiliation for nothing. Shaking my head. The True Hero says Dump was never going to pick a woman or anybody of color, quote unquote. So that's the situation here. JD Vance is the guy. We'll see what he does. We'll see if there's maybe a debate in the upcoming future with him and Kamala Harris, or anyone else that may be in the role of Democratic presidential candidate. I'm just saying that's still potentially on the table. That is a big story that happened for the past couple of weeks after Joe Biden fell apart on the debate stage. If nothing else, all this news with the RNC and Donald Trump assassination attempts and all that really have pushed Joe Biden's issues and his story off to the side a little bit, which at the time, Joe Biden's issues pushed many of Donald Trump's off to the side. We still got Project 2025 revelations happening. We still got, as I mentioned, the issues with Joe Biden, and we still got the issues with now Donald Trump and this assassination attempt in response from that. There's many layers to this campaign, you guys. I'm not sure if I've seen one in much of the recent history of me following politics since around 2000 that that has been this many things happening, this big of a deal and historic things happening as we're now in July, just going into the conventions, headed into this presidential election. But we'll see what this whole this week at the RNC does. We'll see how they introduce JD Vance. We'll see about the fanfare around that. We're going to see how Donald Trump then said he completely changed his speech that he's going to give on Thursday of this week because of the assassination attempt. And I think other folks, I'm not sure if he himself said it, but other folks are talking about, you're going to see now a president, a former president, it's of unity. You know him as a fighter. Side note, at the convention today, I already saw that they were chanting fight, fight, fight from the floor. So I'm not sure how much that's going to change. Of course, something coming from the guy that they all worship. So JD Vance is the guy. Curious to what you guys have more to say. I'm going to be back as we go throughout this whole week. Of course, there's going to be news that breaks from every aspect of the RNC that goes down, from the speakers to the way that they go about this whole thing. I guess it'll be fun. TYT folks are out there in Milwaukee at the event itself. I used to love going to the RNC. The RNC was a fun event to go to. I went to a couple of them. So it's a fun time out there. Hope they enjoy it. Jank, John, Anna, everybody out there that's working the event. It should be a good time. I hope you guys check them out. Also, come back, check us out. We got things happening every day at the watch list. As you can probably imagine, a couple of odds a day coming out with things that you guys are seeing in the news with my take on them, with video backing up that evidence. It's always good times here. We will catch you guys all soon and later. I guess congrats, JD Vance. Good job, bro. We'll see you guys later.